Every marriage is tested. His test was simple. Would she walk away? The answer destroyed everything. I knew something was different the moment she came through the door that evening. Her eyes had that wild, glowing look, like she'd just been handed a secret she wasn't sure she should share. She tossed her bag on the counter, paced once across the kitchen, then stopped and looked at me with that mixture of excitement and guilt I come to recognize. "You're not going to believe this," she said, breathless, her lips curling in a half-smile that dared me to ask. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice steady. "Try me." She launched into the story, how a representative from a modeling agency had stopped her after yoga class, handed her a card, and said she had potential. Not the over-the-top promise of instant fame, just enough sincerity to sound plausible. She laughed nervously as she recounted it, tucking her hair behind her ear, as if she already knew how ridiculous it sounded, and yet wanted me to take it seriously. Inside, I felt the first crack open, not because of the so-called agency. I'd seen these scams before, but because of how much she wanted it to be real. I watched her move while she spoke, the way she rested one hand on her hip as if unconsciously striking a pose, the way her chest rose and fell quicker than usual, her lips moist as she bit them between words. Desire and ambition wrapped around her, like a perfume stronger than the faint trace of jasmine she always wore. I couldn't help but notice how alive she looked, how that energy pulled me in and pushed me away at the same time. "They said I'd need to come by for an evaluation shoot," she explained. "Headshots, some test posing, nothing too serious." She looked at me then, almost challenging me. "Can you imagine? Me a model?" I smiled faintly, careful not to reveal too much. I could imagine a lot of things. The truth was, I'd imagined her body under studio lights before, imagine men's eyes tracking every curve, every line of her legs and hips. She had that effect on people, even when she wasn't trying. And right then, with her standing in front of me practically buzzing with excitement, I couldn't deny there was something magnetic about it. But another part of me stirred. Not jealousy exactly. Not yet. More like a warning. A whisper that this was the beginning of something, and not necessarily something good. She crossed the kitchen, leaned over me, and pressed a quick kiss to my lips. "You don't mind, do you? I mean, it's just exploring. Seeing where it goes." Her lips lingered longer than they needed to, soft and warm, carrying that faint taste of mint gum. I caught the subtle swell of her breasts under her blouse as she bent closer, and a flicker of heat jolted through me. Even in that moment, when I should have been the rational, grounding voice, I felt a surge of attraction as sharp as it was complicated. "I don't mind," I said slowly. "Just be careful. These things aren't always what they seem." She pulled back, tilting her head, smiling like she'd already won the argument. "I know, but what if this is real? What if it's the chance I've been waiting for?" She turned, walking toward the bedroom change, and I caught myself staring at the sway of her hips, the way her jeans clung tight, teasing me with a view I'd memorized 100 times. For a moment, I wanted to follow her, pull her into me, remind her that she didn't need the validation of strangers, that she already had someone who wanted her, who desired her endlessly. But I stayed put, because a darker part of me wanted to see how far she would take this. That night, as we lay in bed, she curled against me, her body warm, her hair tickling my cheek. She whispered about the future, glamorous shoots, magazine spreads, possibilities that glittered in her mind. Her hand slid over my chest as she spoke, fingertips drawing lazy circles that stirred something primal in me. It felt almost cruel, the way she could talk about strangers admiring her beauty while her body pressed against mine, heat radiating through the thin fabric of her pajamas. I didn't stop her. I didn't question her. Instead, I held her tighter and let her words wash over me. Part of me was aroused, caught in the fantasy of her being wanted by the world. Another part of me was already plotting, already wondering what choices she would make if given a chance. Because I knew this wasn't just about modeling. It was about temptation, about how much she craved attention, how deeply she wanted to be seen. And I was determined to find out just how far she'd go to chase that dream. I thought maybe the evaluation shoot would be the end of it. A glossy headshot, a few awkward poses, some photographer pocketing a quick feed before fading into the night. She'd get out of her system, laugh about it later, and we'd go back to normal. But I was wrong. She came home a week later, clutching an envelope like it was a winning lottery ticket. She practically floated into the apartment, her heels clicking against the floor in a rhythm that made my pulse quicken. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes glassy with excitement. She tossed the envelope onto the table in front of me and said, "They want me." I got an offer. I opened it, scanning the dense paragraphs of legal jargon. It was styled like a real contract, though I could tell it wasn't from any powerhouse agency. The name printed at the top carried weight only to people desperate enough to believe it. Still, it looked official enough to fool most. Then I saw the clause, not written outright, but implied between the lines. Travel covered. Exclusive meetings with the director. Private sessions to discuss creative direction. It didn't scream exploitation, but it whispered it. And whispers are often more dangerous than shouts. She was watching me carefully, biting her lip the way she did when she knew I might not agree. She slid closer, placing a hand on my thigh, her touch warm, deliberate. This could be my shot. They said the director wants to meet me, personally, at his hotel, just to go over details. Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't name. Hope? Fear? Or maybe desire for something beyond me, beyond us. I held the paper between my fingers, pretending to weigh it while inside my chest burned. And what exactly do you think he wants to discuss in a hotel room? She leaned back, sighing, as if I were the one being naive. You don't understand how this industry works. These meetings are normal. It's just business. Just business. The words stung more than they should have. She said them with such conviction, as if rehearsed, as if already decided. I studied her. The way her blouse was still slightly unbuttoned from her rush home, revealing the curve of her collarbone, the swell of her breasts. The way she unconsciously crossed and uncrossed her legs as she sat across from me, her skirt riding up just enough to reveal smooth skin that I knew by heart. She was radiant, intoxicating, and she knew it. She knew the power she carried. And still, she wanted more. "Do you want me to go?" she asked suddenly, almost sharply. It wasn't really a question. It was a challenge. I forced myself to stay calm, though inside every muscle tensed. I want you to make the right choice. She tilted her head, smiling faintly, her eyes glinting with something dangerous. And what if the right choice doesn't look like what you want? The air between us thickened. I felt the heat of her gaze, the electricity running under my skin. For a moment, I wanted to drag her into my lap, strip away her defiance with my hands and mouth, remind her who she belonged to. The thought made me hard, and I hated that she could pull that reaction out of me even while talking about another man. Instead, I let out a slow breath. "I trust your judgment." Her brows lifted. She wasn't expecting that. "But understand," I continued, locking eyes with her, "trust is a one-time gift. Once you throw it away, it doesn't come back." Her lips parted, and for a second I saw hesitation. Then it was gone, replaced by that same determined glow. She leaned in, kissed me hard, her tongue brushing mine with a heat that felt almost like a goodbye. My hand slid down her back instinctively, pulling her close, but she broke away, breathless. "You'll see," she whispered. "This is going to change everything." That night she showered longer than usual, steam filling the apartment. When she finally stepped into the bedroom, wearing only a towel that clung damply to her curves, she crawled onto bed and straddled me, her body slick and warm, her hair dripping onto my chest. She kissed me again, urgent this time, grinding against me until I groaned. It felt like she was trying to erase the doubt she planted earlier, try to distract me with sex, so I wouldn't think too hard about what she was about to do. And maybe she succeeded, at least for that moment, because as her towel slipped away and she pressed herself against me, I lost myself in her body, in the heat and desperation of her movements. But later, when she lay asleep beside me, skin glowing under the dim light, I stared at the ceiling and thought about the hotel room, about the director, about whether she'd see it as just business, and about how I was going to find out. The morning of her meeting felt like a performance stage just for me. She woke before dawn, humming softly as she moved through the apartment, careful not to wake me. But I wasn't sleeping. I watched her, the way she lingered at the mirror, curling her hair, applying makeup with a precision she never bothered with for me. Her body was wrapped in a silk robe, and every movement threatened to reveal the curve of her hip, the swell of her thigh. I wanted to drag her back into bed, to make her forget whatever fantasy she was chasing. But I didn't. I lay still, silent, letting her think I slept. When she finally dressed, it wasn't in something casual, not the clothes of a woman running errands or meeting a friend. No, she chose a slim black dress that hugged her body too well, ending just above her knees. She paired it with heels I hadn't seen in months. The kind of outfit designed to impress, not just professionally, but sexually. She paused at the edge of the bed, looking down at me. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing slow. She leaned in and pressed a kiss against my cheek, soft, almost apologetic. Then she whispered, "Wish me luck," before slipping out the door. The click of her heels in the hallway echoed in my chest long after she was gone. I sat up, adrenaline rushing through me. This was it, the real test. She had chosen the dress, the perfume, the kiss goodbye. Now it was time for me to see what she'd do with the opportunity. I showered, quickly dressed, and left the apartment 10 minutes after her. My heart hammered as I tailed her cab through the city, careful to stay back. She never once looked over her shoulder. Her focus was forward, toward the hotel looming ahead like a monument to temptation. I parked across the street, watching her step out of the cab, her legs stretching long and elegant beneath the hem of her dress. Even from a distance, I could see the way the doorman's eyes followed her, the subtle sway of her hips as she walked through the glass doors. I waited 5 minutes, 10, 15. My chest tightened with every passing second. Finally, I crossed the street, slipping inside the lobby, pretending to scroll through my phone like any other guest. She was already gone. The desk clerk was sliding a key card across the counter to her as I walked in. Room 914. She took it, smiled politely, then disappeared into the elevator without hesitation. The clerk caught me staring and frowned. I forced a grin, mumbled something about waiting for someone, and drifted to the lounge area, my pulse pounding. 914. The number seared into my mind. I imagined her in that room, sliding the key card into the slot, the green light blinking, the door swinging open. I imagined the director waiting, lounging in a robe, his smile sharp with promise. I imagined her stepping inside, biting her lip the way she had with me the night before. My stomach churned. Anger, jealousy, arousal. They twisted together until I couldn't tell one from the other. I ordered a coffee I had no intention of drinking and sat where I could watch the elevators. Every minute that passed was a blade against my skin. I wanted to storm upstairs, to drag her out by the wrist, to scream at her for choosing ambition over us. But I stayed put. This was a plan. To see, to know, to confirm. An hour crawled by. Finally, the elevator dinged. She stepped out. Her hair was slightly mussed, her lipstick faded. She walked quickly, clutching her purse close, not looking at anyone. My throat went dry as I tracked her movements. She didn't stop at the desk, didn't glance at the clerk, just headed straight outside and flagged a cab. I didn't follow this time. I didn't need to. Instead, I went to the counter, heart hammering, and asked casually, "Hey, my wife just went upstairs, room 914. Can you call and see if she left something behind?" The clerk hesitated, eyeing me, then he shrugged, picked up the phone and dialed. "Room 914, he said. A pause. "Yes, sorry to bother you. Did a young woman just leave?" "Okay, thank you." He hung up and gave me a polite smile. "She's been checked out. Everything's fine." Checked out. The word sat in my chest like lead. She had gone up. She had stayed. And now she was checked out. On the drive home, my mind replayed everything. Her kiss goodbye, her dress, her hair, the way she looked stepping out of that elevator. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles whitened, fighting the urge to slam it into the nearest wall. When I walked through the door, she was already there, barefoot, hair brushed, sipping tea like nothing had happened. She looked up at me and smiled. "How was your day?" she asked. I studied her, every detail. The faint red mark on her neck. The way her blouse was buttoned one too high, as if hiding something. My mouth went dry. I wanted to ask. I wanted to scream. But instead, I forced a smile of my own and said it was fine, because this wasn't over. Not even close. That night, I couldn't sleep. She lay beside me, breathing slow and even, her body curled slightly toward mine. To anyone else, she looked peaceful, innocent. But my eyes stayed fixed on the faint mark on her neck, that shadow of crimson half hidden beneath her collarbone, a mark no necklace could explain. I tried to tell myself it could have been anything. A careless brush of fabric, the edge of a strap, but in my gut, I knew. I could almost feel the weight of another man's mouth pressed there, sucking until blood rose to the surface. She shifted in her sleep, the sheet sliding low enough to reveal the curve of her breast, the edge of lace beneath her camisole. My body reacted before my mind could stop it. Even after everything, I still wanted her. Maybe that was the worst betrayal of all. My own desire refusing to let go. I turned away, staring at the ceiling. The silence of the apartment pressed down on me, louder than any scream. In the morning, she was radiant. Too radiant. She kissed me with a sweetness that felt rehearsed, asked if I wanted coffee, and hummed while she moved around the kitchen. She didn't mention the hotel. Didn't explain where she'd gone or why she came back looking like that. I didn't press her. Not yet. Instead, I played along, smiling, nodding, acting like the man she thought I still was, the man who trusted her. But inside, I was studying, cataloging every detail, the way she checked her phone constantly, the way she tilted her head, lips curving with private satisfaction when a message came through. By evening, my patience cracked. She was dressing again, this time in a low-cut blouse and tight jeans, casual enough to pass as dinner with a friend, but polished in a way that suggested something more. I leaned against the doorway, watching her adjust her lipstick in the mirror. Going out? I asked, keeping my tone light. She glanced at me, smiling too quickly. Just meeting the girls. You know, wine and gossip. I nodded slowly. Which girls? She hesitated, just a flicker, but I caught it. Emily, Claire, maybe Sarah. Names she always used when she wanted me to stop asking questions. I pretended to accept it, even kissed her cheek as she left. But the second the door closed, I grabbed my jacket and followed. Her cab led me not to a wine bar, but back to the hotel. Different night, same story. This time, I didn't hang back. I parked close, entered the lobby a minute after her, and watched from the corner as she took another key card from the clerk with practiced ease. Room 1112. She walked the elevator with steady steps, not a hint of doubt in her stride. My stomach turned. I waited 10 minutes before slipping into the elevator myself. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked like a stranger, jaw clenched, eyes burning with something between rage and need. I stopped at the 11th floor, heart slamming, as I walked down the carpeted hall. I didn't knock. I didn't dare. But I stood outside 1112, close enough to hear faint sounds through the door. Laughter, a man's voice, then silence, broken by the unmistakable rhythm of a bed moving against the floor. My knees nearly gave out. I pressed my hand flat against the door, forehead leaning close. My wife, my beautiful, ambitious wife. On the other side of that thin wall, she was giving herself away piece by piece for a promise of fame. My chest ached, but I couldn't walk away. I stayed listening, torturing myself with every muffled sound, every imagined scene. Her moans blurred with memory, her voice when she was with me, the way she used to clutch my back and bite my shoulder. Now those same sounds belonged to someone else. After what felt like hours, the noises stopped. I retreated quickly, slipping back into the stairwell before the door could open. My legs shook as I descended, each step heavier than the last. By the time I reached the street, my hands were trembling. I lit a cigarette I didn't want, sucking the smoke deep into my lungs just to keep from screaming. When she came out an hour later, she was glowing, her hair tousled, her lips swollen, her smile faint but satisfied. She looked like a woman who had won something, not lost everything. She didn't see me watching. She never even thought to look. That night, when she slid into bed beside me, she smelled faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. She curled against my chest as though nothing had changed, her hands slipping beneath the sheet, fingers brushing against me in a teasing caress. I hardened instantly, my body betraying me yet again. She kissed my neck, whispering, "Missed you today?" And I lay there, torn in half. Half of me wanted to take her, to reclaim what was mine, and half of me sickened by the thought of her body still warm from another man's touch. I didn't stop her. I couldn't, because if this was a game she wanted to play, I needed to know just how far she would go. And the only way to learn that was to let it happen. The next morning, she was up before me, already moving about the kitchen with a strange lightness in her step. She brewed coffee, fried eggs, hummed a tune that sounded too cheerful for our small apartment. I sat at the table, silent, watching her hips sway as she moved. The scent of butter filled the air, but beneath it lingered something sharper, cologne, faint but unmistakable, clinging to her skin. When she finally placed my plate in front of me, she leaned down and kissed my cheek. Her lips were warm, soft, still carrying a sweetness that made my chest tighten. But all I could think about was the hotel, the laughter I'd heard through the door, the rhythmic creak of a bed. I forced a smile. "You're in a good mood." She poured herself coffee, eyes glinting with that secret she thought I hadn't uncovered. "Things are working out. The agency really believes in me. The director says I have the kind of look that could go international." I let the words hang between us. She sipped her coffee, pretending not to notice my silence. But I noticed everything. The way her hand trembled slightly when she set the mug down, the way her eyes darted away from mine. I wanted to confront her, to slam my fist on the table, and demand she admit what I already knew. But part of me wasn't ready. Not yet, because as much as I hated it, I needed to see how far she would go. That night, she dressed again. A short black dress that clung to her figure, hair curled with deliberate care, lipstick a deep shade I'd only seen her wear once, on our anniversary. She stood before the mirror, fastening earrings, and asked, almost casually, "Do I look okay?" My throat tightened. She wasn't asking me for reassurance. She was practicing for someone else's gaze. "You look perfect," I said, and the words tasted like ash. She smiled, kissed me on the lips, and left. I waited, pacing the living room until I couldn't bear it anymore. Then I grabbed my jacket and followed. The hotel again. Always the hotel. This time, I couldn't bring myself to lurk in the hall like some broken shadow. Instead, I sat in the bar across the street, staring at the glowing windows, knowing she was up there. Every sip of whiskey burned, but I kept drinking, my mind painting pictures of what might be happening in that room. Her laughter, the sound of his belt unbuckling, the heat of their bodies colliding. When she finally returned, hours later, she didn't even look guilty. She walked into the apartment with the grace of a woman who thought she'd secured her future. She dropped her purse, peeled off her heels, and slipped into bed without a word. I lay awake beside her, the tension coiling tighter in my chest until it was almost unbearable. I wanted to hate her, but my body betrayed me again. The faint smell of sex clung to her skin, and instead of pushing me away, it pulled me in. My blood roared as I imagined the things she'd done, the way she'd been touched. I was furious, jealous, but also painfully aroused. I turned toward her, sliding my hand down her thigh. She stirred, half asleep, and murmured my name. Her body responded instantly, opening to me, as if she hadn't just given herself to someone else. The contrast made me dizzy. One moment she was his, the next she was mine. The line between possession and betrayal blurred, until I couldn't tell where my anger ended and my desire began. Afterward, she lay against me, breathing softly, as though nothing had happened. And maybe that was her secret weapon. Not denial, not lies, but her ability to make me forget for just long enough that I stayed. But I hadn't forgotten. Not really. The next day, she left her phone on the counter while she showered. My hand hovered over it, trembling. I told myself not to look, that crossing that line would make me no better than her. But curiosity burned hotter than my guilt. I unlocked it easily. She hadn't even bothered to change the passcode. Messages glowed across the screen, thread after thread with a single name, Marcus, the director. His words were bold, direct, laced with promises. "You looked incredible tonight. Next week, a bigger investor is coming. I want you to meet him. Remember, you're doing this for your future." Her replies were softer, peppered with emojis, but the meaning was clear. "I know. I'll be there. Just don't forget your promise about the contract. It's worth it if it means I get noticed." My chest tightened as I read them, each word driving a nail deeper into me. It wasn't just sex. It was an arrangement, a trade. She was selling herself, not for survival, not even for pleasure, but for the hollow promise of fame. I put the phone down just before she emerged from the shower, wrapped in a towel, steam rising behind her. Water dripped from her hair down her collarbone, and despite the storm inside me, my eyes followed the drops hungrily. She smiled, oblivious. Thinking about me? I forced a laugh, nodding, but inside, something was breaking, because now I knew it wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't confusion or weakness. It was a choice, and she'd already chosen. I don't know why I kept pretending. Maybe because part of me hoped she would stop on her own, that she would wake up and realize what she was trading for the illusion of a dream. Or maybe because I wanted to see just how far she would go, how much of herself she was willing to sell, before I finally broke. It didn't take long to find out. One evening, she slipped into the living room, hair still damp from a shower, wrapped in a silk robe. She sat across from me, legs crossed, and her eyes glittered with the kind of excitement I hadn't seen since before our marriage had become weighed down with bills and routine. "Marcus invited me to dinner tomorrow," she said casually, like she was talking about a harmless night out with co-workers. "It's important. There's going to be an investor, someone who can really open doors." My stomach twisted. Dinner, just dinner? Her lips curved, not quite a smile. You always ask that. Do you really want to answer? The silence between us thickened. Her robe slipped slightly as she leaned back, exposing the pale line of her thigh. It wasn't an accident. She was testing me, teasing me with the body she gave to other men. You don't have to do this, I said finally. My voice sounded more desperate than I intended. She tilted her head. Don't I? You think opportunity like this comes without a price. Her words lodged in me like thorns. She didn't even hide it anymore. There was no apology, no denial, only blunt truth. Sex was her currency, and she was willing to spend it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to her breathe beside me, my mind replaying her words. I imagined the dinner, the investor's greedy eyes, the way she'd smile to keep his attention. I imagined her following him to a private room, the way she'd followed Marcus. Every thought made my blood boil. But beneath the fury was something darker, an ache I couldn't shake, a twisted desire that kept me hard even as I despised myself for it. The next evening, she dressed with a care that told me this was no ordinary dinner. A crimson dress hugged her curves, low enough to reveal the swell of her breasts, high enough to tease her legs. She sprayed perfume at her neck, a scent I knew too well, and when she turned to me with a twirl, she looked less like my wife and more like a fantasy. How do I look? She asked. I swallowed the truth, like a woman about to sell herself to the highest bidder. Instead, I said beautiful. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and left. I followed, of course, not into the restaurant, but close enough to watch from across the street, my pulse racing as she entered a private dining room with Marcus and a man I didn't recognize. Older, wealthy-looking, the kind of man who probably collected women the way others collected art. Through the window, I saw their silhouettes, her laughter, the way she leaned forward, brushing her hair back, offering glimpses of cleavage. I couldn't hear their words, but I didn't need to. Her body spoke for her. She was selling the promise of herself before the deal was even struck. Hours passed before she emerged, her arm brushing against the investors as they said goodnight. Marcus kissed her cheek, like a man congratulating his prize pupil. And then she was gone, sliding into a cab, unaware that I watched every second. When she came home, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes glowing. She tried to sneak quietly into bed, but I was waiting. How was dinner? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. She froze, then forced a smile. Good. Productive. He liked me. I bet he did. I muttered. Her expression faltered. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking down at her hands. Why do you say it like that? Because I know what productive means. Her silence said everything. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try. Finally, she looked at me, her eyes defiant. Do you want me to walk away? Is that what you really want? Because if it is, say it, and I'll stop. The words caught in my throat. Did I want her to stop? Or did I want to see how far she'd go? My body betrayed me again, heat rising as I remembered the way her dress clung to her curves. I couldn't answer. She leaned closer, her voice a whisper. Then don't question me. Let me do this. For us. For me. And then she kissed me, slow, lingering, her lips tasting faintly of wine. I hated that I kissed her back, hated that I pulled her onto my lap, that my hands roamed her body like I was starving for what I knew she'd already given away. We made love that night with ferocity I didn't understand, half anger, half need. Her moans filled the room, and for a moment I convinced myself she was still mine. But when she finally collapsed against me, breathless and spent, I knew the truth. She wasn't mine anymore. Not really. She belonged to the dream, to Marcus, to whoever else could pay the price. And I was just a spectator, caught between desire and disgust, watching the woman I loved slip further away. I told myself I wouldn't go this time, that I wouldn't stalk her shadow like some broken man hiding behind corners. But when she announced she had her first professional shoot, I couldn't resist. The word itself set my nerves on fire. Shoot! It sounded glamorous, safe, creative. But I knew Marcus too well by now. If he was behind it, there was always something hidden beneath the surface. She left that morning radiant, her hair pinned, makeup immaculate, a portfolio case tucked under her arm. She kissed me goodbye with lips painted a deeper red than usual, her eyes sparkling with hope. Wish me luck, she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. I did wish her luck. Luck to find a way out before it was too late. But I said nothing, just smiled and let her go. 2 hours later, I was parked half a block from the studio Marcus rented, watching. The sign outside was discreet, the kind only insiders knew about. Models slipped in and out, but when she arrived, everything seemed to pause for me. Her dress was simple this time, white, flowing, innocent, the kind of thing that made her look untouched. The irony was bitter in my mouth. I sat there, drumming my fingers against the wheel, debating whether to stay. But then Marcus himself emerged, holding the door for her, his hand brushing the small of her back like he owned her. That was all it took. I slipped out of the car and moved closer. Inside, the studio smelled of makeup, hot lights, and faint sweat. I stayed near a half-open door at the back, just enough to glimpse the scene without being noticed. She stood under glaring lights, her body angled toward the camera, lips parted. At first it was innocent. Smiles, profile shots, a tilted head. But slowly Marcus guided the shoot. Loosen the straps. Good. Now lean forward, give him more. Her straps slid down, revealing the swell of her breasts. She didn't hesitate. She arched her back, posed with lips wet and parted, eyes smoldering. The photographer, a man twice her age with a hungry stare, clicked furiously, sweat beading at his temples. Perfect, Marcus said, circling her like a predator. Now let's dress. Think seduction. The white fabric pulled around her waist, leaving her in lingerie I didn't even know she owned. Lace black against pale skin, hugging every curve. She posed with deliberate grace, one hand resting on her hip, the other grazing her thigh. My throat went dry. My cock strained against my jeans, betraying me. I hated myself for it. Hated that I wanted her even as other men devoured her with their eyes. Then Marcus whispered something to her, too low for me to hear. She hesitated, biting her lip, and then, slowly, she slipped the straps of her bra off her shoulders. My heart hammered. She didn't bear herself completely, not yet, but the message was clear. She would, if asked. And Marcus was asking. The photographer leaned in. That's it, beautiful. Give me more. She posed again, eyes half-lidded, lips parted in suggestion. Every shot captured not my wife, but some stranger who'd replaced her, a stranger who had learned how to weaponize desire. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a light stand. My chest ached with rage, jealousy, and something worse, arousal I couldn't control. I fled before she saw me. Back in the car, I slammed the steering wheel, gasping like I'd run miles. My body shook with adrenaline. My mind clouded with images of her curves lit by studio lights, of men commanding her every move. When she came home later, she was glowing, humming softly as she hung her dress in the closet. It went amazing, she said. The shots. Marcus says they'll get me noticed. I stared at her, wondering if she noticed the trembling in my hands. And you're proud of that? I asked. She paused, her back to me. Why shouldn't I be? Because I saw you, I said before I could stop myself. Her body stiffened. Slowly she turned, her eyes flashing with something between anger and guilt. You followed me? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. You don't understand, she said, her voice rising. This is the way it works. If you want attention, you give them what they want. It's not just sex, it's power. Her words sliced through me. She believed it. She truly believed stripping for strangers gave her power. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to drag her away from Marcus and his filthy promises. But all I could do was watch her peel off her makeup, humming to herself like she conquered the world. That night, lying beside her, I couldn't close my eyes. The image of her under the lights burned behind my eyelids. My wife, the woman I loved, was no longer mine alone. She belonged to the lens, to Marcus, to anyone who could capture her for their desire. And I hated that part of me wanted her all the more because of it. I should have confronted her. I should have told her that what she called modeling was slipping into something else entirely. But every time I opened my mouth, her eyes lit up with that dangerous mixture of hope and hunger, and I froze. I didn't want to be the villain standing between her and her dream. It was Marcus, of course, who pushed things further. He called it an industry mixer, a private party for talent, agents, and patrons. My wife was ecstatic. This is a chance to really be seen, she said, twirling in front of the mirror, while fastening a dress that shimmered like liquid silver. It clung to her body, slid high on one side, plunging low in the front. She looked like temptation itself. I asked if spouses were invited. She hesitated, then said, Not really, it's more of a networking thing. That word again, networking. I'd come to hate it. So I did what I always did. I followed. The venue was a downtown penthouse, windows spilling golden light into the night. Valets whisked away cars worth more than our yearly income. I parked down the block and walked, keeping my head low. Inside, through glass doors, I saw her. She was already in Marcus's orbit, his hand resting at the small of her back like a brand. She laughed at something he whispered, her champagne flute catching the light. The crowd was a mix of the powerful and the hungry. Older men in tailored suits with heavy watches. Women with perfect faces, some confident, some desperate. Everyone watching everyone else, calculating what could be traded. I slipped in through the service entrance, pretending to be staff, and found a vantage point near the bar. From there I watched. At first, it was innocent enough. Polite laughter, business cards exchanged, glasses clinking. But the undertone was clear. The men didn't just want to sponsor talent. They wanted to own it. Every glance was a transaction, every smile an invitation. Marcus introduced her to one of them, tall, gray-haired, with a tan that looked permanent. He kissed her hand slowly, his thumb lingering against her skin. She didn't flinch. She smiled. She let him lead her to a quieter corner, where the shadows cloaked their conversation. My chest tightened as I watched her lean in, her hand brushing his arm. He said something that made her laugh, tilting her head in that way that always used to undo me. Now she was giving it away freely. The gray-haired man touched her thigh as if testing the waters. She didn't move his hand. I couldn't watch anymore, but I couldn't leave either. I was trapped between two hungers, the need to drag her out of there, and the sick desire to see how far she would go. An hour later, Marcus raised a toast. The room hushed, glasses lifted, his voice booming with charm, to beauty, ambition, and the courage to chase both. Everyone cheered. My wife was beside him, glowing in that silver dress, her cheeks flushed from champagne. She looked alive in a way she hadn't in years. Alive and lost. After the toast, the party shifted. The lights dimmed, the music slowed. The gathering fractured into smaller clusters. Some slipped behind closed doors. Laughter and whispers drifted through the halls. I caught sight of her again with the gray-haired man. He was leading her down a hallway. Marcus followed a few steps behind, a grin curling on his lips. I moved too, but the guard at the corridor's entrance stopped me. Private area, he said firmly. I froze, anger and panic fighting in my veins. Through the corner of my eye, I saw them disappear behind a door. My wife, the man Marcus. The door shut. For minutes I stood there, rooted. My mind raced with images I didn't want but couldn't stop. Her body yielding under his hands, Marcus watching, guiding, taking his share. When she finally returned, her hair was mussed, her lipstick faintly smeared. She adjusted her dress as though nothing had happened. She spotted me at the bar and froze. Our eyes locked across the room. For a moment, everything else faded. The laughter, the music, the clinking glasses. Just me and her, the truth between us like a blade. She came to me slowly, her smile brittle. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, her voice low and sharp. I could ask you the same. Her hand trembled as she set her empty glass on the bar. "It's business," she said again, softer this time, as if trying to convince herself more than me. "Business?" I hissed. "Is that what you call disappearing into back rooms with strangers?" Her jaw tightened. She didn't deny it. Instead, she leaned closer, her perfume wrapping around me, her voice a hiss in my ear. "If you want me to make it, you'll stop sabotaging me. This is how it works. I'm not naive anymore." I pulled back, searching her eyes, but the woman I knew was slipping away. That night, I drove home alone. She stayed at the party. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing echoes of champagne glasses, whispers in hallways, and the quiet click of a lock turning on the other side of a door I couldn't open. And for the first time, I wondered if this wasn't just a test of her, but of me. How much betrayal could I endure before I finally broke? Morning came heavy, like a hangover I hadn't earned. She slipped into bed just before dawn, the scent of perfume and someone else's cologne clinging to her skin. I pretended to sleep, but my mind was wide awake, replaying every image from the night before. When she finally stirred, hours later, sunlight cutting across her bare shoulder, I asked quietly, "Did you have fun?" Her eyes flicked open, startled. Then she smiled too quickly. It was incredible. Everyone was so welcoming. They said I had real potential. I studied her, the way her hair was tangled, the faint marks on her neck. And Marcus? He was welcoming too. She hesitated just long enough for the silence to slice me open. Then she said, "He's been supportive. He believes in me." Supportive. believes in me. Words that mask the truth like cheap perfume masking sweat. I didn't push further. Instead, I got up and made coffee and watched her from across the kitchen as she scrolled her phone. She was glowing, humming softly, her mood too buoyant for someone who'd stumbled home at 5 in the morning. She looked like a woman falling in love with something new, and I feared it wasn't just modeling. That week, Marcus called again. Another opportunity, he said. A photo shoot at a studio downtown, but private. Only a few people invited. My wife accepted without hesitation. Do you want me to come with you? I asked. She frowned, as if I'd suggested barging into a surgery. No, it's not that kind of shoot. It's intimate. I need to focus. I nodded, hiding the fire burning inside me. When the day arrived, I followed anyway. I waited outside the studio, parked across the street, an old warehouse dressed up with expensive lighting rigs and rented equipment. From the second-floor window, I caught glimpses, her in a silk robe, Marcus adjusting lights, another man watching with too much interest. Hours crawled by. When she finally emerged, her robe replaced by jeans and jacket, she looked flushed, radiant, exhausted. She didn't see me as she got into Marcus's car. They drove not home, but to a hotel. My stomach dropped. I followed, each block tightening the noose around my chest. They disappeared inside together, and I sat in my car, staring at the revolving doors, time blurring. 30 minutes. An hour. 90 minutes. When they finally came out, her lipstick was gone, her smile glazed. Marcus's hand lingered on her back as he opened the car door for her. She looked like she belonged to him now. That night, when she returned home, I asked nothing. She showered, humming again, the tune soft and careless. She crawled into bed beside me, damp hair brushing my cheek. I couldn't stop myself. Did he touch you? I whispered into the dark. She stiffened. For a long moment, silence. Then she said almost angrily, "Why you try to ruin this for me? Can't you just be happy I'm finally chasing my dream?" Chasing, I repeated. Or selling. Her breath hitched. I thought she'd lash out. Instead, she turned away, curling into herself. Minutes later, I heard her muffled sobs. And damn me, I wanted to hold her. Even then, even knowing what she'd done. The next morning, Marcus sent her flowers. An extravagant bouquet, the kind of thing meant to be flaunted. She placed them proudly on the table. I stared at them until the petals blurred. That's when I realized this wasn't just a test anymore. This was a war. Not just for her loyalty, but for her soul. And Marcus was winning. But he didn't know me. He didn't know how far I could go when I felt cornered. I made a silent vow that morning, watching her smile at his flowers. If she wouldn't walk away from him, I'd drag the truth into the open myself, even if it destroyed both of us. The night I chose to end it all, the city was drowning in rain. It poured against the windows like fate itself was trying to wash me clean, but I stayed awake, waiting for her. Waiting for the moment when truth could no longer hide behind perfume and lies. She came home later than ever. Her heels clicked on the tiles, her hair damp from the storm, her lips painted fresh. She looked alive, too alive for a woman who'd been out working. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the lamp casting me in shadow. The bouquet Marcus had sent her 2 days ago lay wilted on the counter. "Hey," she said carefully, sensing the weight in the air. "You're up." "I've been up all night." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit." She hesitated, then obeyed. Her robe fell loose around her legs, a careless intimacy she no longer realized cut me like glass. "I know," I said flatly. Her eyes darted away. "Know what?" That the contract wasn't just a contract. That Marcus isn't just a director. That every time you went to him, it wasn't just business. Her lips trembled. Then she straightened her spine, defiant. "I did it for us. For me. For a future that doesn't involve struggling forever. Do you think I wanted to sleep with him? Do you think I didn't fight with myself every night? But he offered me a chance, and I took it." The words hung there, sharp, final. "So you sold yourself," I whispered, "and sold me along with you." She slammed her hands on the table. "Don't you dare sit. They're acting righteous. You let it happen. You knew, and you said nothing. You watched me walk out the door every time." She wasn't wrong. The knife twisted deeper because she wasn't wrong. I had tested her, hoping she would choose me, and she had failed. "You could have stopped me," she said, voice cracking. "But you didn't. Why? Because you wanted to see how far I'd go? Because you wanted to prove something?" Her tears glistened in the dim light. I rose slowly, leaned over the table. My voice dropped to a near growl. I wanted to see if the woman I married still existed beneath all that desperation. I wanted to see if you'd remember love before lust and ambition swallowed you. But she's gone. You buried her yourself. She broke then, sobbing into her hands. For a moment, I almost reached for her, almost let myself believe there was something left to save. But I didn't. Instead, I walked to the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase. She followed, begging, pleading, "Don't do this. Please. It doesn't have to end like this. I can fix it. I can—" "No." I cut her off. "You made your choice the first night you knocked on that hotel room door. And I made mine every time I didn't stop you. We're finished." She crumpled to the floor as I packed, her sobs echoing against the walls of what used to be our home. When I zipped the suitcase and turned back, she was looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. "So what now? You just leave? After everything?" "Yes," I said, "because this was never about modeling or money or sex. This was about truth, and you failed the test." I carried my suitcase to the door. She didn't follow. The storm outside swallowed me whole as I stepped into night, the weight of betrayal and silence pressing down on me. But beneath it all, I felt something close to freedom. I didn't look back.